The vaccines aren't ready just yet, but India is ready with its vaccine plan. And Prime Minister Modi today outlined the rollout strategy in a crucial COVID review meeting with state chief ministers. The Prime Minister asked states to start working on very specific things like cold storage facilities to prepare for the vaccine's arrival and distribution. He's assured the country that the vaccine in India will be distributed only when it is certified 100% safe and at top speed.
Encouraging results from vaccines under trial in India have bolstered hopes amid fight against COVID-19. With the vaccine in sight, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid out the outline of a vaccine rollout plan in a crucial meet with the state chief ministers.
साथियों, वैक्सीन को लेकर भारत के पास जैसा अनुभव है, वो दुनिया के बड़े-बड़े देशों को भी नहीं है। हमारे लिए जितनी जरूरी है स्पीड है, उतनी ही जरूरी है सेफ्टी भी है। भारत जो भी वैक्सीन अपने नागरिकों को देगा, वो हर वैज्ञानिक कसौटी पर खरी होगी। जहां तक वैक्सीन के डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की बात है, तो उसकी तैयारी भी आप सभी राज्यों के साथ मिलकर के की जा रही है और इसका विस्तृत प्लान बहुत जल्द ही राज्य सरकारों के साथ मिलकर के तय कर दिया जाएगा। हमारी राज्यों की और केंद्र की टीम साथ लगातार वो बातचीत कर रहे हैं, काम चल रहा है।
Chalking out the course ahead, PM stated that the country should focus on bringing the COVID test positivity rate down to 5%.
पॉजिटिविटी रेट को 5% के दायरे में लाना ही होगा और मैं मानता हूं छोटी-छोटी इकाइयों पर कहिए कि भाई एक क्यों बढ़ा, आधा क्यों बढ़ा, दो क्यों बढ़ा। हम राज्य के स्केल पर चर्चा करने के बजाय अब जितनी लोकलाइज चर्चा करेंगे, शायद हम एड्रेस जल्दी कर पाएंगे।
Prime Minister Modi also slammed politics on vaccine, saying the arrival of vaccine is in the hands of scientists.
कोई किसी पे थोप नहीं सकता है। भारत सरकार निर्णय करे कि हम ये करेंगे और राज्य सरकार, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। हम सबको मिलकर के ही इस चीज को आगे बढ़ाना पड़ेगा और इसलिए सबके विषयों का बड़ा महत्व है। जहां तक वैक्सीन का सवाल है, वैक्सीन की स्थिति और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन को लेकर भी चर्चाएं हुई हैं। एक प्रकार से मीडिया में जो चलता है वो अलग चीज होती है। हमें तो इन चीजों को ऑथेंटिकली ही आगे बढ़ना पड़ेगा।
As people continue to crowd marketplaces, Prime Minister warned against any complacency.
हम एकदम से वैक्सीन पर सिर्फ तो जिसका काम करना है करेंगे, हमें तो कोरोना पर ही फोकस करना है। हमें किसी भी हालत में ढिलाई नहीं बरतने देनी है। हाँ, शुरू में कुछ बंधन इसलिए लगाने पड़े ताकि व्यवस्थाएं भी विकसित करनी थी, लोगों को थोड़ा एजुकेट भी करना था। अब हमारे पास टीम तैयार है, लोग भी तैयार हैं। थोड़ा आग्रह रखेंगे तो चीजें संभल सकती हैं।
Speaking at the meet, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal sought 1,000 additional beds at central government-run hospitals. Bengal Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee, on the other hand, claimed the COVID situation in the state was under control. She, however, seized the opportunity to seek GST dues from the centre. Bureau Report, India Today.
Very privileged here on Newstrack on India Today to be joined by an amazing panel of doctors and healthcare professionals from around the world who are deeply involved not just with the COVID-19 pandemic, but are also deeply and keenly watching for when this vaccine is going to come. They're tracking all the developments, and we wanted to get you a global perspective, not just from India, but around the world, on what this vaccine is going to look like, when will it arrive, what the possible hurdles are going to be in the rollout, because this is going to be a vaccine that everyone in the world needs. Remember, it's going to be the biggest vaccination drive in human history. So I'm going to introduce all of our guests one by one as I go to them with the questions. But I first want to tell you, and this is reflective of what our viewers would like to know as well, because they want clarity. Sometimes the questions we have, especially about an issue that is so complex, are very, very simple. And these questions unite all of us, no matter how advanced you are or how big an expert you may be. These are questions that all of us want to ask. How long for the vaccine, for instance, is the first question that we will all ask. Will the vaccine be safe? Will it actually completely inoculate us against COVID-19? What will be the cost of this vaccine? Will rich nations be able to hoard the vaccine? Will there be logistical troubles, political troubles between countries that will delay the distribution of the vaccine wherever you are? How big of a problem is distribution finally going to be, especially in the last mile? Let's not forget that the earth has over 6 billion persons. The distribution needs to be to every one of those persons, especially in the most affected areas. What kind of priority list is going to be created? How do countries choose which vaccines they're going to use? What about the costs? So many questions. So I want to get that perspective, not give you my opinion. Dr. Rajesh M. Parikh, very well-known Director of Medical Research, and he's a neuropsychiatrist at Jaslok Hospital and Research Centre in Mumbai. Dr. Vikram Tolalikar is Associate Specialist, University College of London. Dr. Amitesh Anand, Scientist and Microbiologist from California University. Dr. Sanjeev Chaubey is Medical Director at St. Michael Hospital in Shanghai, in fact. Syed Abbas is Senior Director, Clinical Research in Singapore. Dr. R.C. Sharma, Internal Medicine Specialist at the Robert Packer Hospital, Chairman of the Continuing Medical Education in Pennsylvania. Dr. Parikh, welcome to all of you, first of all. Dr. Parikh, to you first. And, you know, the questions I'm going to ask are going to be very simple. The Prime Minister has spoken today, sir. He's put out his, first few steps, laying out the first steps of what vaccine season, if I may call it that, is going to look like. He spent a lot of his time in his speech reassuring the population about the steps being taken by the government. In your view, with your understanding of where everything is, Dr. Parikh, when do you think vaccine season will actually begin?
Well, Shiv, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes.
You were amongst the first people to be clued in to the threat of this pandemic. And the very first discussion we did, you were excited about our book. And we did talk about vaccines as way back as in January.
Yes,
A specific answer to your question, from what I'm following, it looks like it's going to be the first quarter of next year. The efficacy data is coming, safety data, some of it is awaited. I do not imagine that we're going to be able to vaccinate people until the first quarter of next year.
Okay, not the first quarter of next year. That's when the vaccinations will begin. Dr. Tolalikar, same question to you. One of the most promising vaccines is out of Oxford University. We've just heard, figures from the efficacy study there as well. What is, it's the same question to you, Dr. Tolalikar. When do you think vaccine season is going to start? And of course, just to be clear, when I say vaccine season, I mean the vaccines begin to ship, the vaccination of populations begin.
Shiv, thank you for having me on the show today. Thanks to you and team. Well, I think I would agree with my other speaker and colleague in the sense that I think the vaccines really will be started to be administered around March, April next year in most countries. And that's because we've just recently had all the results coming through, but we're still waiting for the regulatory approvals, which is a process. They'll have to look at the safety data, the risk-benefit ratio, what happens if you vaccinate, what happens if you don't vaccinate. And in addition, of course, there are logistical challenges like getting the manufacturing, the actual companies to do it, then transporting the vaccines at the right temperature. So given all that, you're looking at least 2 to 3 months to put the whole program together. So realistically, I think most countries are looking at February, March or thereabout. Some countries might see it a bit earlier, especially in the UK. There's a talk about starting vaccination just before Christmas.
Yes.
Now that's being very optimistic, as sometimes it may not happen because of the regulatory process. But more or less, I would put a figure around, say, February, March to be the most likely time when things will start rolling out.
Okay, so first quarter, Dr. Amitesh Anand, do you think that's how it's going to play out? The United States, like India, battling a very large number of cases. It's been a very big political issue in the election gone by as well. Dr. Anand, do you think that given all these pressures that the first quarter of 2021 seems to be realistic as far as vaccine season is concerned?
Shiv, thanks for having me. Yes, I'll totally agree on that. In fact, it looks like Pfizer has already applied for emergency use authorization to US FDA, and that meeting is to be held on 10th of December. And if that goes through, then in at least in US, the first doses is supposed to be sometime around Christmas time. But then, in terms of larger scale vaccination, yes, first quarter of 2021 is really the realistic thing. Before that, it will be like really difficult. Even for US, this cold storage, especially the ultra cold storage, is a big problem, and that's why this logistical issue of distribution is going to come. But then,
Exactly.
yes, first quarter of 2021, we can hope for.
Dr. Sanjeev Chaubey, to you, you're in China. You definitely have a very interesting perspective here. We've been hearing some things from China about how there is the possibility of the Chinese vaccine sort of entering the system long before some of the others. What is your perspective, Dr. Chaubey, on when vaccine season for the world is going to start, and what role the Chinese vaccine will play in all of that?
If you see the globally, and if you see the Chinese vaccine, regarding Chinese vaccine, they're already in the trial phase.
Yes.
And they already has vaccinated the military people and the healthcare providers.
Correct.
As well as they also have some vaccine where the pandemic situation is very worst. Aside from that, it's already under the trial. But for the common people, for the general people, and many more vaccines yet to come. So that's why in the previous the webcast I told that need to wait for some time to just around. It's too early to say because our sample size is quite small. The challenges which you have mentioned, like how safe and costly, what is the cost and logistic and distribution method and all. So first of all, the trials should be successful because we are going to inject a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. So any side effect or anything which happen, that is a case of study. So it should be a full, and even 70 to 80% output is good enough for us to inject the vaccine. So probably, in my opinion, it's going to be second quarter most likely.
Okay.
By the time of that, we have a good number of samples, and we can come to conclusion. At present, at the moment, none of the vaccines has been approved by the FDA. So it's better to wait. But it's a very good news that the vaccine has started arriving.
Yes.
In the so much of small time duration. Like
absolutely, that is something I'm going to discuss with all of you in my next point, which is about some of these hurdles. But Dr. Syed Abbas, every country is looking at this as a priority issue right now. We can be certain that it's going to be first quarter, second quarter next year. Give or take a few weeks this way or that way. The one thing we can all be clear about is that every country is trying to make sure that they get it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's correct. And there are various factors on which we need to look at. Let's talk about India. Some of the countries have secured the number of vials from some of the key pharmas and manufacturers early. There'll be early B to get these vaccines, and India is one of them because we are manufacturing these vaccines in India for Novavax, for Oxford. And the good news is that for Oxford, the interim analysis of data has shown positive result. And until there are any negative surprises coming in from the analysis of phase 3 data, we should be able to get the emergency authorization of vaccine in India by January sometime.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Serum Institute of India has already manufactured. They have started manufacturing long back, 2-3 months back, and they're ready with 40 million of vials. So as soon as we get DCJ approval, we can start administering the vaccines for the healthcare workers, frontline workers. That can be done anytime in February if everything goes well. So coming to the rest of the world, not all the countries have. The early countries are some countries in Europe, Japan, Australia, Singapore. I don't think they have done it. But some of the pharma companies, they have made a strategy of manufacturing, in different countries. For example, Oxford, they're manufacturing in India.
Yes.
They're also manufacturing in Thailand, And so for Southeast Asia, the distribution will be done from Thailand, not from India. And India will be catering to the Indian population as well as some of the other, developing countries. I would
Other
say, or
countries,
underdeveloped
yes,
countries.
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are the key distribution strategies which the pharma companies, along with the government, they have made.
No, that's very
and
useful.
The time will say.
What you've shared is very useful. The distribution strategies is also going to dictate, when each country gets those vials, because it is only then that the government of each country can get those vials out to the population. So as you said, the Serum Institute in India is going to be manufacturing the vaccine that's being developed in Oxford. Dr. R.C. Sharma, this is truly a global effort. There are so many parallel vaccine development efforts that are happening in different parts of the world. How are countries choosing between these vaccines? One would assume that everyone understands this, but how is, because each vaccine appears to have a different efficacy level. What is that choice like? How do experts make that choice?
Thank you for having me. Well, in 10 seconds, I'll tell you about US, where I am.
Yes.
Now, Moderna and Pfizer are here, and they claim this vaccine about efficacy more than 90%. Again, it has go through with the various agencies to verification and all that. But if everything goes well, by end of December, Dr. Albert Bourla, the Pfizer CEO, and Ungar Sahin, BioNTech CEO, has claimed that 20 million they will produce by end of December. And the priority will be the healthcare worker, elderly, and people with morbidities, diabetes, hypertension, and so on. So this is about US at the end of this year.
Yes.
Again, by next year, in 2021, both of them claim they will have 1.3 million vaccines.
Yes.
And that will be distributed to all over the world. 1.3 million is much more than what US can consume. So that is where it is with Moderna and Pfizer.
Okay.
Again, the vaccines storage of these two seems like a little cumbersome for compared to AstraZeneca and Oxford Jenner Institute, but and price-wise also, I think they are cheaper as AstraZeneca one.
Yeah.
But they are based in Oxford, UK.
Yes.
So their vaccine will be distributed first to UK,
correct,
and then to other European countries, and then only it will cross over to other nations. What the arrangements are between nations, I don't know exactly.
No, we have that information.
But that is how it's going to be.
Yes.
And I tell you, sometimes we create more smoke even if the fire is not lit. So vaccine, general population, and I am in contact with many people from my school in Bihar, in Netarhat, and other places, and they think vaccine is there. No reason to wear a mask.
Right.
Distancing.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's exactly my mantra. This is going to stay. Do not know when this 70% herd immunity will be achieved. Nobody can say. Because who will not take the vaccine, distribution, administration, and so on. So MSD, mask, soap, and distance. Continue this for the time being, at least for years.
I'm going to underline that in red. MSD, masks, soap and distance is a great mantra. No matter what, recently on social media, I was joking about this. And I said that the day that the vaccine arrives, we're probably going to have a scene at Delhi's India Gate, which looks like when India won the Cricket World Cup. And I seriously hope that is not the case. I love India's emotions. I love how Indians embrace emotion, but this is not something to be stupid about and ill-informed about. This is about our lives and the lives of our loved ones. Dr. Parikh, coming back to you.
Absolutely right.
Yes. Dr. Parikh, coming back to you, the Prime Minister today, he said some things which were which were kind of exciting to citizens in terms of, he said things which were very specific, which gave the sense that, this vaccine is near. He was telling the states, I hope you've got all your cold storage facilities, up and running, and that gives citizens who may not know very much, including me, the sense that, okay, get your fridges ready because vaccine aa raha hai bahut jaldi, and then we'll roll them out, etc. This is going to be an extremely complicated process, Dr. Parikh. What kind of hurdles do you foresee, even with all the huge amount of planning that countries like ours and the states, the smallest level, have taken so far?
Shiv, I see three major hurdles. It's only the third one that is being discussed, which is the logistics of maintaining the cold chain, distribution, etc.
Yeah.
But there are two much larger hurdles which are being ignored in the discussion on the vaccine. The first is the safety. The safety data is not out yet. It's not unequivocally clear. And we have to understand this in the context of history. In 2017, the dengue vaccine had gone through all phases of trial in terms of efficacy, was about to be rolled out. And then at that point, fortunately, they discovered a major safety issue.
Wow.
And that is it enhanced the entry while blocking one dengue vaccine virus. It actually enhanced the entry of another vaccine due to a thing known as ADE, antibody dependent enhancement. We wrote about this in our book in the month of February.
That is scary.
And they had to stop it because that was a bit scary and very, very dangerous. So safety is the first hurdle we need to cross. The next, and I think the Prime Minister alluded to that in his speech, that's the big elephant in the room nobody's talking about, and that's the politics of the vaccine. Who gets it? Who gets to go? The politics is evident even at the two vaccines that the previous speaker spoke of, Pfizer and Moderna. It's now in the public realm. The US government is heavily invested in the Pfizer vaccine. They put in $2 billion there.
Yes.
They put in about $480 million in Moderna. On the 25th of August at 6 p.m., the advisor to the Trump Operation Warp Speed, a gentleman called and told him not to move forwards on his vaccine. Apparently, he needed to have some Latinos and others into the trial, but they were delayed by 3 weeks in getting their vaccine ready by the US government, which gave an edge to Pfizer, whose stock soared because they announced the vaccine. That's a part of it. We don't need to get into the details of, but we can't ignore it. There is going to be a lot of politics. Of course, the Prime Minister did say that politics should be divorced from vaccine and it should be left to scientists. But that's something we've been to. And I'm sure the other speakers will elaborate on the logistics.
Very true. I'm glad that there's a reason I asked you that question, Dr. Parikh, because I was hoping you would raise the issues that go beyond just the logistics and distribution. Dr. Tolalikar, tackling that first point, which is the safety hurdle, very, very important point. The efficacy studies are one thing, but, as the recent example that Dr. Parikh cited shows that efficacy studies are one thing. We in the public who are not medical experts may be thinking efficacy study 90%, 94%, yay, fantastic, hurrah. But, it's there is no celebration yet in the medical community, is there? That's a very important point. There is still a distance to go before this is a reasonably reliable vaccine.
Yes, Shiv. I agree with both of you there in the sense that the safety is still to be determined. Yes, the good bit of it is that the results so far have been quite reassuring. They are not fully out there. We still need more data and the publications to come out. But whatever we've seen so far has been pretty reassuring. I was part of the trial, the Oxford vaccine trial. And actually, whenever we've looked at the side effects that people had so far within the small time of 6 months, none of the individuals have reported any major side effect. There haven't been major issues, neurological complications, nothing. Now, these are early data and these are trial data. So it's not that all these things that you see in the trials actually translate to community. You might see that the effectiveness is less and you might see some complications or side effects when the vaccine doses are actually rolled out in the community. You're talking about giving this medicine to billions of people. So you've got to be sure that your safety is absolutely first.
Yes.
But I must say the positive news here so far, with the limits of whatever data we have, is that so far most of these vaccines seem to be doing a good job. They're not causing any major problems or major side effects. So it's reassuring. As we progress over the next few months or next 6 months or a year, the more we actually get experience from these vaccines on the ground, the more we will learn. And that's how we adjust. We kind of decide which one vaccine, which may be the best one, or which has the least side effect.
Yes.
So far, so good.
Dr. Amitesh Anand, since you're in the United States as well, where these two vaccine candidates, very promising vaccine candidates, are making pretty steady progress, Moderna and Pfizer. My question to you is, and this is something that's shared by a lot of people I speak to, given the huge, this is, and not for a moment is this to suggest that those involved are not professionals and there aren't checks and balances to make sure that vaccine development is happening with all the safety checks and balances and will not be released without them. Given this huge global pressure and demand and urgency for this vaccine, is there a possibility at all? Is there any possibility, Dr. Amitesh Anand, that safety will in some way or the other be given some kind of a shortcut just to get the vaccine out? Is there any risk of that?
I hope not. I'm glad that you asked that question. One thing I would like to start with is that it's not that anybody is withholding the information of safety.
Yeah.
The challenge is that we have information of only few months, maybe 6 months or so. So we have safety data for that time duration. We have safety data for 6 months or so. And good thing is that there has not been seen any adverse effect in that short term. But as one of my fellow panelists mentioned, that we also should worry about or should be careful about what is the long-term effect. But then, unfortunately, for that, we'll have to wait and we'll have to see that all those volunteers, are they developing any sort of complication, any sort of side effect. So that's that. And then, as you rightly mentioned, that right now, all these informations are interim report. These have been provided by some independent bodies.
Yes.
The good thing is that based on this information is nobody's gonna use this vaccine. All these data has to go through US FDA. And then hopefully, I really hope that all this data is published and made available for scientific community to review it, what we call as peer review.
Yes.
So that way we'll be getting sure about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines.
Okay.
Another thing that I would like to highlight is that right now, the way we are talking about the efficacy is in terms of percentage. It's really not the correct way of talking about vaccine success. The reason is we have a very small number. Like in the case of Moderna, we have 95 candidates who are volunteers who actually developed the COVID symptom. Out of those 95, 90 are the one where placebo was given, which means they were not actually given the vaccine.
The vaccine, yeah.
Based on that, if you simply divide by 90 by 95, they come to the number of 94 point something. So that's not the right way of representation. Talk about the number, don't talk about just the percentage. Because in many cases, like take the example of Sputnik 5, they have only 20 volunteer that has developed the disease. And based on those 20 cases, they are talking about number as high as 90 or more than that.
Basically, you're saying it sounds better if you talk in percentages, but it's nowhere near as reassuring, you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I would love to see more number. In fact, the US FDA has this minimum number of 150 plus positive cases to be analyzed. Then only they even look at your data and they think about authorization it for even emergency use.
Yeah. Dr. Chaubey, from the perspective in China, what hurdles do you see? Because the vaccine process is going to be beyond borders. It's going to be it's going to be an exercise that transcends political barriers and borders. What is your perspective on the possible hurdles from you're in China, so your perspective on that?
Actually, I'm very much convinced with Dr. Rajesh Parekh. The political problem is not only for the vaccine, if you see for the whole pharmaceutical business, the monopoly only goes to US, European country and Japan. Even India is the largest manufacturer for the drugs. Even in the beginning, they said that the hydroxychloroquine is a good drug for treating this COVID-19.
Yes.
And later on they claim that there is a new onset of diabetes and everything is happening, so they stop it. So it's a monopoly game. So it doesn't matter since this disease is pandemic, and irrespective of any barrier or political barrier or any kind of thing, we should accept each other. According to me, we should accept for the human mankind. We should accept each other. The vaccines, even doesn't matter.
Great point. Yeah.
So why we only focus on the Pfizer or Moderna or some all foreign countries vaccine? We can develop our own.
No, and those efforts are actually on. Dr. Parikh, you want to add something to that? The idea of monopoly and the fact that, the politics of the pharmaceutical industry will likely be a hurdle going forward. You mentioned that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the pharmaceutical industry. It is the intersection of the politics between the pharmaceutical industry and hardcore politics. In the US, for example, Operation Warp Speed, which is a government agency, is already at odds with the FDA, which is another government agency. The FDA may say that they want 150 cases. Operation Warp Speed might even allow it at lower cases. Moderna made its first announcement, which took its stock prices up with 8 patients, 8 subjects. So we have a third circle in the Venn diagram, and that is the money part of it. So at the intersection of these 3 circles lies a solution, and we cannot be oblivious to it. We have to be mindful of it, and which is why I was very impressed. I'm sure the Prime Minister is aware of it, because he did emphasize that politics has to be disconnected from the vaccine.
Dr. Syed Abbas, the intersection of politics and industry, do you think that it's going to be a hurdle? There is one sense that, given that this is a pandemic that has united every country on earth, there is no country that is not affected by COVID. Do you think countries are going to be able to set aside these existing political differences, the world order, priorities, etc., to make sure that everyone gets it on a sort of equanimous way?
And the answer is, if they don't do it, I mean, it would be doomsday for that country. So if you are going to bring in politics in this pandemic, I believe in past many, even in my life, my father would have seen some pandemic in past, but we haven't seen it. So we have to keep politics and the management of vaccine or COVID situation separate. If we don't separate it, and government has to take all the required measure to keep it separate. There's no plan B. There is no second chance for us. And answering to your first question, very importantly, you asked for the data and the safety. So whatever decision by any regulator, be it US FDA, MHRA, CDE in China, PMDA in Japan, or DCGI in India, TGA in Australia, all these decisions will be taken on the available safety and efficacy data. Okay, if you're talking about 90%, it will be based on the available efficacy data. If you're talking about the safety issue, that will be based on the available safety data. And the answer to whether this vaccine is safe or efficient, the answer is data. And for the data, answer is time. And the question is, do we have time? The answer is no.
Great
so
point.
Whatever decision we are going to take, whatever decision we are going to take, that will be a combination of the current situation in the country. For example, India, what choice do we have? The number of cases are increasing. US, the number of cases are increasing. So we have to take some decision at some point of time, based on the available data and getting some vaccine available to control to some extent, So the answer is not so simple, that we have to see the safety data or we have to see the efficacy. We have to see whatever we have, versus what risk we are facing.
Yeah. No, very true. The sort of spreadsheet, the global spreadsheet as far as, how each country's experience compares with the other, how this will create some kind of a possible merit list in terms of who needs it more on priority. One wonders whether it's actually happening like that. And when you've got disparate countries and powers trying to look at it, is there any real convergence and meeting of minds that makes it a sort of, that is going to make vaccine season an efficient thing for the world. Because the one thing that's sort of mind-blowing to us, it's not, I'm sure it's not mind-blowing to all of you because you are experts, but mind-blowing to people like us is, it's not like there's anybody else watching. This is the entire world. So, it's not like this is one country's experience and there will be other countries or the United Nations who will watch how we do it. This is literally the entire world. Dr. R.C. Sharma, that question I can ask you because the political angle is something that everyone is watching very closely. The United States, using a great deal of its political heft, has 2 of these programs happening in the United States. Do you think politics is going to, hamper things for the world once vaccine season begins?
Right, thank you. Well, anybody's guess in this environment, right? And as an ordinary citizen, we all want to listen to everything and see everything to believe what's going on.
Yeah.
Dr. Parikh, I think, mentioned about Operation Warp Speed.
Yes.
It is a governmental organization for the effort of creating the vaccine. However, FDA and the other regulatory agencies, they are independent agencies, and they will look into this data and all this evidence. They will scrutinize it and go through this in detail. At the moment, there is 95 patients report, as we just elaborated. However, they want to see 164, which Pfizer is going to present. So these are, of course, preliminary data, and in scientific community, haven't we seen that after some time the fine print comes and we come to know that this data was tainted or this happened or that happened? Of course, but at the moment we should all celebrate that this initial data from both Moderna, Pfizer, as well as AstraZeneca, showing such a promise. This is, if this was not the case, we would still be in much darker place than we are right now.
Okay, I hear you.
There is hope. There is hope, and these agencies, independent agencies, will figure it out. And this is a global fight, of course. It's not just true for US or India or any other place. This is global fight.
Yeah.
We are all in this together.
Absolutely.
This is the whole
Absolutely.
point. This is what, and again, I keep coming to the point, keep talking about vaccine. There is no harm about that. Keep knowing about everything, and please take the vaccine. That's the education has to reach to the general population. But as Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus said, that vaccine alone will not end the pandemic. That's
Absolutely.
the problem.
I'm going to end on that particular point because I'm out of time, but this has been very enriching. And I think the one thing we can all agree on, you're saying that, it's not so much gloom and doom. Whatever data has come out is reason to hope. So I think the one thing we can all agree on is no time for great India Gate level celebrations, but no time for gloom and doom. Let's keep our chins up. Let's keep the hopes up. Let's trust the agencies, the doctors, the many warriors who are, not getting any sleep because they've got targets to meet in this vaccine development. We are all in this together, gentlemen. It's been a really, really enriching experience for me to have all of you on this panel. I learned a lot, as I always do with professionals like yourselves. It's been an honor. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you.